There comes a moment in every woman's life when she looks in the mirror and realizes something painful. Being the good girl has gotten her applause, but not respect, attention, but not honor, responsibilities, but never the recognition she deserves. And if you're feeling that today, hear this clearly. You were not created to live trapped inside someone else's expectations. You were designed to live from purpose, not permission. For too long, you've tried to be agreeable, humble, quiet, polite, easy to manage. You were taught that being good would protect you, that being silent would keep you safe, that shrinking yourself would make others love you. But all it did was make people comfortable with your absence. When you become the good girl, you become predictable, controllable, and forgettable. And that is not who you were created to be. There is a difference between being good and being wise. Being good makes people like you. Being wise makes people respect you. Being good makes you available. Being wise makes you valuable. Being good makes you a substitute. Being wise makes you irreplaceable. This is the shift you must make today. Stop being the girl who pleases everyone and become the woman who honors herself. You were never meant to apologize for your brilliance. You were never meant to dim your light because someone else is intimidated by your shine. You were never meant to soften your voice so someone else's ego feels stronger. When you hide your strength, you don't protect relationships. You weaken them, because any relationship, friendship, or circle that requires you to be small is already too small for your destiny. Listen closely. People don't respect the good girl because she gives away everything, her time, her energy, her boundaries, her voice, without asking for anything in return. And what you give away freely will never be valued deeply. Respect is not earned by silence, it is earned by standards. Respect is not earned by being available, it is earned by being intentional. Respect is not earned by bending, it is earned by knowing when to stand tall. You are not here to be a doormat. You are not here to be the background. You are not here to be everyone's emotional caretaker. You are here to live boldly, courageously, purposefully. And purpose requires strength. It requires clarity. It requires boundaries. The moment you decide to stop being the good girl, you unlock a version of yourself the world has never seen. Confident, self-aware, focused, and unstoppable. Some people won't like the new you. They will say you've changed. They will say you're difficult. They will say you're not the same anymore. But hear me, that is the price of growth. The caterpillar doesn't apologize when it becomes a butterfly. The seed doesn't apologize when it becomes a tree. And you do not need to apologize for becoming the woman you are always meant to be. You don't need their approval to rise. You don't need their validation to speak. You don't need their permission to evolve. This is your life, your calling, your journey. And the moment you stop being the good girl, you stop living for them and start living for your destiny. So today, step out of the role that was never meant for you. Stand up, speak up, show up, set boundaries, protect your peace, honor your worth, and watch how quickly the world begins to treat you the way you treat yourself. Stop being the good girl. Start being the woman with purpose. That's where respect begins. People don't respect what is always available. And this truth becomes painfully clear when you look closely at how others respond to your kindness, your loyalty, and your willingness to show up every time they call. When you make yourself constantly accessible, emotionally, mentally, or physically, people begin to see your presence as something ordinary, something guaranteed, something they never have to earn. It's not that you are less valuable, it's that your consistency becomes so predictable that they stop seeing it as a choice and start seeing it as an obligation. You stop being a blessing, and in their eyes you become a resource, something they can access anytime without giving anything back. And when people see you as a resource rather than a person, respect slowly fades away. The painful truth is that humans naturally value what requires effort, patience, and intention. When something is rare, it is protected. When something is consistent without boundaries, it is misused. Your availability becomes a silent message that says, I don't require much, and people respond accordingly by giving you the bare minimum. They call you only when they need something. They show up only when it benefits them. They treat your kindness like a bottomless well, never considering that you too get tired, drained, or hurt. The more you give without limits, the more they expect without gratitude. And the worst part, you start to believe that being constantly available is the only way to be loved. You convince yourself that if you don't answer immediately, if you don't drop everything for them, if you don't say yes, even when your heart is screaming no, they might walk away. That fear keeps you in a cycle where you become emotionally exhausted, mentally overwhelmed, and spiritually empty. Yet even in your exhaustion, people continue to demand more because you've trained them to believe that your needs don't matter. You've shown them that you will show up, even at the cost of your own peace. But deep inside, you know something is wrong. You feel the frustration building. You feel the quiet resentment forming. You feel the sadness of being unappreciated, unnoticed, and undervalued. And that's because your heart was never meant to be someone else's convenience. You were not created to be a backup plan, an emotional bandage, or a caretaker for people who never pour anything back into you. Every time you allow yourself to become too available, you rewrite your own worth in smaller and smaller letters. The shift begins when you finally say enough, when you start honoring your time, your energy, and your emotional space, when you stop replying instantly, when you excuse yourself from conversations that drain you, when you stop overextending yourself just to keep relationships alive. When you start valuing yourself, others either rise to that standard or fall out of your life, and either outcome is a blessing. Because respect is not demanded, it is taught through consistent self-respect. Your value has never been the problem. Your availability has. And when you finally pull back, when you finally prioritize yourself, when you finally understand that you are worth effort, you will see something powerful happen. People will either adjust and treat you differently, or they will disappear, revealing their true intentions. Either way, you gain your peace back, you gain your strength back, and you gain the respect that was always meant for you. Being the good girl turns you into a people pleaser, not a purpose chaser. And this is one of the most silent but dangerous traps a woman can fall into. When your entire identity becomes centered around keeping others happy, you slowly lose touch with the woman you were meant to become. You start shaping your decisions around opinions instead of convictions. You begin molding your personality to fit what others expect rather than who you truly are. Without realizing it, you give everyone else the power to define your worth, your direction, and your identity. And the more you live to please others, the further you drift from your own purpose. People-pleasing feels noble at first. You tell yourself you're being kind, helpful, supportive, and loving, but beneath the surface, you're sacrificing your dreams, suppressing your voice, and suffocating your own desires just to maintain peace. You say yes when your heart is pleading for rest. You take on responsibilities that are not yours to carry. You agree to things that drain your spirit just because you don't want to disappoint anyone. And after a while, you don't even recognize your own needs because you've spent so long prioritizing everyone else's. And while you spend your life trying to make everyone comfortable, no one stops to ask, "Are you okay?" Because people-pleasing teaches others that you don't have needs of your own. It sets an unspoken expectation that you will always adjust, always compromise, always bend. And when you do that long enough, people stop appreciating your kindness. They start expecting it. They stop noticing your efforts. They start feeling entitled to them. They stop valuing your presence. They start assuming you'll always be there. That's the tragedy of being the good girl. The more you give, the less they see you. But deeper than that, people-pleasing kills your destiny. You cannot fulfill your purpose while living under the weight of other people's expectations. Purpose requires boldness. It requires courage. It requires making choices that others may not understand or approve of. And if your greatest fear is upsetting someone, you will never have the strength to walk the path meant for you. You'll always stay small, safe, predictable, and quiet because stepping into purpose requires doing what pleasers fear most, saying no. The moment you break free from people-pleasing, you feel something shift inside you. You begin to breathe again. You begin to think for yourself. You begin to see what truly matters. You start honoring your own voice instead of drowning in the noise of others. And that voice begins to guide you toward your real identity, not the version of you shaped by everyone else, but the woman you were always meant to become. Choosing purpose over pleasing is not selfish. It is necessary. It is the only way to reclaim your power, your confidence, confidence and your destiny. When you stop chasing approval, you start chasing growth. When you stop trying to be liked, you start becoming respected. When you stop trying to fit in, you finally rise into the woman who stands out. This is where your transformation begins. Not in being perfect, not in being agreeable, not in being the good girl, but in choosing to live courageously, purposefully, and authentically. When you stop living for others, you finally start living for yourself. Silence is often misunderstood, especially when it comes from a woman who has been trained her whole life to stay quiet, stay calm, and stay agreeable. You may think your silence makes you respectful, polite, or easy to get along with, but many people misinterpret it as weakness. They assume that because you don't speak up, you don't have an opinion. Because you don't confront them, you don't mind the way they treat you. Because you don't express your needs, you don't have any. Your silence becomes a mask that hides your strength, and unfortunately, the world rarely honors what it cannot see. Every time you hold back your truth, you hand someone else the power to define your reality. You let them assume what you think, what you feel, what you want, and what you deserve. Silence might feel safer in the moment. It avoids conflict, it keeps the peace, it prevents arguments, but over time it erases your presence. People begin making decisions without you. They stop asking for your insight. They stop valuing your voice because they've never heard it. And the saddest part is that you know you are capable of so much more, yet you stay quiet because you don't want to upset anyone or draw attention to yourself. But silence has a cost. It builds resentment inside you. It creates emotional distance in your relationships. It leaves you feeling invisible, overlooked, and unheard. You start wondering why people don't consider your feelings, but the truth is hard to face. They don't consider them because you never express them. They don't respect your voice because they've never experienced it. They don't prioritize you because you never set a standard that required them to. Your voice was not given to you to be buried. It was given to guide your life, to set boundaries, to protect your heart, and to establish your identity. When you stay silent in moments where you should speak, you betray yourself. You deny your own worth. You let others write the story you are supposed to be writing yourself. And the world loses access to the wisdom, insight, and perspective that only you carry. Speaking up does not mean being loud, aggressive, or demanding. It simply means choosing truth over fear. It means valuing your feelings enough to express them. It means standing firm in what you believe even when your voice shakes. It means giving yourself permission to take up space in conversations, relationships, and environments where you once shrank. Your voice is not a threat, it is a tool, and it becomes powerful the moment you start using it. When you finally choose to speak, something shifts. People begin to listen differently. They begin to see you differently. They begin to treat you differently. Respect is not given to silence. It is given to clarity. When you speak your truth with confidence and calmness, you teach others how to approach you, how to value you, and how to engage with you. Your silence has protected others from discomfort, but it has never protected you. It has only kept you small. Today you have the chance to change that. Your voice deserves to be heard. Your thoughts deserve space. Your truth deserves expression. And once you begin speaking, you will discover something beautiful. Your voice was powerful all along. It just needed permission from you. Boundaries are one of the strongest forms of self-respect, yet they're often the hardest thing for a good girl to set. You grew up thinking that saying no was rude, that declining a request made you selfish, and that protecting your peace meant you didn't care about others. But the truth is the exact opposite. Boundaries don't push people away. Lack of boundaries pushes you away from yourself. Without boundaries, your life becomes open territory for anyone to enter, take, drain, and demand. You end up exhausted, overwhelmed, and confused about why people don't treat you the way you deserve. When you don't set limits, people assume you don't have any. They begin to treat your time like it's free, your energy like it's endless, and your kindness like it's guaranteed. You become the person everyone depends on but never considers. You become the go-to for favors, the emotional dumping ground, the one who never complains because they believe you'll always say yes. And the more you give in, the more they expect. The more you sacrifice, the less they appreciate. After a while, you start to feel invisible, not because you aren't valuable, but because you've never protected your value. Setting boundaries is not about building walls, it's about choosing what you allow into your world. It's about recognizing your limits and honoring them. It's about understanding that you cannot be everything to everyone and still remain whole. Boundaries are the invisible lines that protect your peace, your purpose, your time, and your dignity. When you say no to what drains you, you say yes to what grows you. When you step back from chaos, you step forward into clarity. When you stop rescuing everyone, you finally start rescuing yourself. And yes, at first it feels uncomfortable. You might feel guilty. You might worry about disappointing people. You might fear being misunderstood. But discomfort is temporary. Losing yourself is permanent. Boundaries may upset those who benefited from you having none, but the ones who truly care about you will adjust. They will learn how to approach you with respect. They will learn how to value your time instead of assuming it. They will learn that your peace is not up for negotiation. The power of boundaries is that they silently communicate your worth without you having to explain it. They tell others, I respect myself and I expect you to do the same. They protect you from emotional manipulation, from overcommitment, from burnout, and from relationships that only take but never give. Boundaries are the difference between a life of resentment and a life of balance. Once you begin setting them, you'll notice a shift. You'll feel lighter. You'll feel more in control of your life. You'll find the courage to choose what aligns with your purpose and walk away from what doesn't. You'll realize that you don't need to be available to everyone. You only need to be loyal to yourself. And in that loyalty, you will find strength. People respect what respects itself. Boundaries don't make you difficult. They make you clear. They don't make you unkind. They make you honest. And when you finally learn to protect your peace, you stop living as the good girl and start rising as the woman who knows her worth and refuses to compromise it. You teach people how to treat you every single day, not through your words, but through your actions, your reactions, and the standards you set. The way you respond to disrespect becomes the instruction manual others use to continue it. The way you tolerate inconsistency gives others permission to keep offering the bare minimum. The way you stay quiet when you're hurt sends a message that your feelings are optional. Every time you allow someone to cross a line without addressing it, you silently redraw that line further and further away from your worth. People learn how to treat you based on what you correct and what you accept. And too often, the good girl accepts things she should never tolerate. You might not realize it, but the first time someone takes advantage of your kindness, the first time someone dismisses your concerns, the first time someone ignores your needs, your response becomes their reference point. If you let it slide, they assume it was harmless. If you stay silent, they assume it didn't bother you. If you continue giving them access to you without consequences, they assume your value comes with no cost. Humans naturally push limits, not always out of malice, but out of habit. And if someone learns early on that you'll accept anything just to keep the peace, they will continue to test that pattern. But the moment you make a choice to raise your standards, everything changes. When you decide that your time is valuable, people stop wasting it. When you decide that your heart is precious, people become more careful with it. When you decide that your boundaries are non-negotiable, people either rise to meet them or reveal that they never belonged in your life to begin with. Teaching people how to treat you isn't about controlling others. It's about mastering yourself. It's about knowing your worth so clearly that you no longer allow anyone to make you question it. Often the fear of being alone keeps women accepting behavior that breaks their spirit. You think speaking up will push someone away. You think setting boundaries will ruin relationships. You think standing up for yourself will make you seem difficult. But here's the truth. Anyone you lose by valuing yourself is someone you never had to begin with. The right people will respect you more, not less. When you show them that you have standards, the wrong ones will leave, and that is their gift to your peace. When you begin teaching people how to treat you through your decisions, you will notice something powerful. The dynamic shifts. Suddenly, your voice carries more weight. Your presence carries more value. Your boundaries create clarity. You're no longer the woman who gets chosen last. treated casually or taken for granted, you become the woman others think twice before disrespecting. Why? Because you finally think highly enough of yourself to require better. This transformation doesn't happen overnight. It happens in small, consistent choices, saying no without guilt, communicating your expectations clearly, removing yourself from disrespect, prioritizing your emotional well-being, showing people that you are not afraid to walk away from anything that threatens your peace or your dignity. When people see that you are willing to choose yourself, they will start choosing you with more intention, more respect, and more care. You teach people how to treat you not by demanding respect, but by refusing anything less. And when you finally set that standard, your entire life begins to shift in the direction of honor, peace, and true self-worth. You were not created to shrink, yet life, culture, and expectations have pushed many women into small spaces where their brilliance, strength, and voice are dimmed for the comfort of others. From childhood, you may have been taught to be gentle, polite, obedient, non-threatening, to never outshine, to never outspeak, to never outgrow the people around you. Over time, this conditioning becomes a silent prison. You learn to play small not because you lack ability, but because you fear being labeled as too much, too loud, too ambitious, too confident, too bold. And slowly, you start believing that shrinking is safer than shining. The problem is that shrinking doesn't just hide your potential, it suffocates your soul. You feel the weight of your own greatness pressing against the limits you've placed on yourself. You feel restless in environments that were never built to contain your destiny. You feel unfulfilled even when everything looks fine on the outside. That discomfort is not weakness. It's a signal. It's life pulling you toward the woman you were always meant to be. Every time you apologize for your success, every time you downplay your achievements, every time you silence your ideas so someone else won't feel insecure, a piece of your identity goes dimmer. Not because your light is too bright, but because you've been convinced it shouldn't shine at full strength. And here's the hard truth. No one benefits when you shrink. Not your family, not your relationships, not your community. The world loses every time you choose fear over potential. Your purpose suffers when you hide your gifts. Your confidence erodes when you pretend to be less than you are. When you shrink, you don't protect others. You only abandon yourself. And the people who truly love you don't want a smaller version of you. They want the full, unapologetic expression of who you are. Shrinking may feel safe, but it never leads to fulfillment. It keeps you stuck in cycles of doubt and dissatisfaction. It keeps you overthinking every move, second-guessing every decision, and replaying every moment where you could have spoken up but didn't. Deep down, you know you're capable of more, yet you tell yourself to wait, to soften, to slow down, to blend in. But blending in was never your calling. You were meant to stand out, not for attention, but for impact. The moment you decide to stop shrinking, everything changes. You begin walking with a different posture. You begin speaking with a different confidence. You begin making decisions that align with your value instead of your fears. This shift doesn't mean you become arrogant. It means you become aware of your worth, your power, your identity, and your purpose. And when you operate from awareness, you no longer settle for environments that require you to hide parts of yourself just to be accepted. People may react to the new you. Some may feel threatened. Some may distance themselves. Some may criticize you for changing. But their discomfort is not your responsibility. Their insecurity is not your burden. You are not responsible for making others comfortable with your power. You are responsible for honoring the gift of who you are. You were never created to shrink. You were created to rise, to shine, to influence, to build, to lead, to grow. The world doesn't need another quiet, small, invisible woman. The world needs you, unfiltered, unshrunk, and unafraid. When you finally stand in your full power, you don't just elevate your life, you inspire others to do the same. Stop shrinking, start becoming. Your purpose is waiting. Being agreeable does not equal being respected, yet so many women have been conditioned to believe that if they remain soft, silent, and accommodating, people will value them more. You were taught that being easy to get along with would protect your relationships, keep the peace, and make you more lovable. But what often happens instead is the opposite. You become the person everyone overlooks. You become the one whose opinions aren't taken seriously, whose needs are pushed to the side, and whose presence is appreciated only when it benefits others. Agreeableness may win you temporary approval, but it rarely earns lasting respect. When your main goal is to avoid conflict, you end up avoiding yourself. You silence your emotions, your intuition, and your wisdom just to keep harmony. But in doing so, you dilute your identity. Being agreeable makes you blend into the background of your own life. People begin treating you as someone who will always adjust, always accept, always comply, because you've shown them you prefer peace over honesty. Respect doesn't grow in environments where your voice is absent. Respect grows when you stand firm in your values, even when others disagree. The truth is, people admire strength more than they admire compliance. They may enjoy the convenience of your agreeableness, but they respect those who have conviction. They respect those who know what they stand for, who speak with clarity, who express their boundaries without fear. When you're always agreeable, people assume you don't have a backbone. They assume you don't have standards. They assume you don't have a strong sense of direction. And once they make that assumption, they begin treating you casually, carelessly, and without intentionality. Being agreeable can become a mask that hides your real self. You may smile on the outside while screaming on the inside. You may nod your head while your heart feels unheard. You may say it's okay while feeling deeply hurt. Agreeableness becomes emotional self-betrayal when you use it to avoid saying what truly matters. You lose the courage to express your needs because you fear being labeled difficult. But being truthful is not difficult. It is necessary. Respect is not given to those who conform. It is given to those who stand tall. People respect the woman who knows what she wants, the woman who refuses to be disrespected, the woman who speaks with purpose. You don't have to shout to be strong. You don't have to fight to be firm. You simply need to honor your voice enough to use it. The moment you stop saying yes to everything, people start taking your yes more seriously. The moment you stop agreeing to keep others happy, people start seeing that your happiness matters too. Letting go of excessive agreeableness doesn't mean becoming rude or harsh. It means becoming authentic. It means communicating honestly. It means valuing yourself enough to speak your truth with grace, but also with clarity. Respect grows when people know exactly where you stand. You were not created to live behind a smile that hides your real feelings. You were not meant to play the role of the agreeable woman who bends until she breaks. You were meant to live boldly, confidently, and truthfully. When you stop chasing agreeableness and start embracing authenticity, you rise into the woman whose presence commands honor, not because she demands it, but because she has finally learned to give it to herself. Sacrificing yourself for others may feel noble, but when it becomes a repeated pattern, it creates an emotional imbalance that slowly drains your spirit. Many women grow up believing that their worth is tied to how much they can give, how much they can absorb, how much they can endure, how much they can fix for everyone else. You become the emotional glue that keeps everything together, the quiet support system in the background, the one who carries burdens no one even notices. At first, it feels like love, it feels like loyalty, but over time, it becomes a heavy burden that leaves you feeling empty, unseen, and unappreciated. When you continually put others' needs above your own, you begin to lose touch with what you need to survive emotionally. You tell yourself, it's fine when you're exhausted. You say, I can handle it when your heart is breaking. You tell yourself, they need me, even when you desperately need someone to show up for you. You pour and pour until you have nothing left, and then you pour some more because you fear that stopping even for a moment will make you seem selfish, unkind, or ungrateful. This mindset becomes a silent prison. You end up living in a cycle of giving without receiving, supporting without being supported, loving without being fully loved in return. The painful truth is that people often stop pouring into the person who never demands to be filled. They stop checking on the one who always says she's okay. They stop appreciating the one who always says yes. Why? Because you've conditioned them to believe you don't need anything. You've made your strength look effortless, your support look automatic, your patience look endless, and when people assume you don't need care, they stop offering it. That's how emotional imbalance begins, when one person keeps giving while the world keeps taking. Sacrificing yourself for others might keep relationships stable on the surface, but inside you start crumbling. You start feeling resentment. Though you try to hide it, you start feeling alone. Even when surrounded by people, you start feeling tired in a way sleep cannot fix. And the saddest part is that no one sees your exhaustion because you've trained them not to. You've shown them only the strong face, the dependable face, the I'm fine face. But behind that mask is a woman who desperately needs rest, love, support, and understanding. Healthy relationships require balance, not sacrifice. Love must flow both ways. Respect must be mutual. Support must be shared. You were not created to be a vessel that everyone draws from until you run dry. You were created to thrive, not merely survive. When you stop sacrificing yourself, something powerful happens. You begin choosing yourself. You begin saying no to what drains you and yes to what nourishes you. You begin setting boundaries that protect your emotional well-being. You begin allowing others to carry their own weight instead of carrying it for them. When you take care of yourself, you teach others how to treat you. When you prioritize your emotional health, you attract people who value it too. And when you stop playing the role of the self-sacrificing woman, you step into the role of a balanced, whole, centered woman who knows her worth. Your heart was not designed to be everyone's solution. It was designed to live, to feel, to grow, and to be treated with care. Stop sacrificing yourself for others who never stop to see the cost. Start honoring yourself and watch how your life shifts toward peace, balance, and genuine emotional connection. Your voice is your power, yet too many women have been taught to doubt it, silence it, or soften it so that others feel more comfortable. From a young age, you may have been told to be quiet, to not speak out of turn, to not question authority, or to avoid making waves. The result is that many women grow up believing their voice is optional, their opinion is secondary, and their thoughts are unimportant. But the truth is that your voice is not just a sound. It is a declaration of your existence, a tool of influence, and a reflection of your worth. Every time you hold it back, you diminish yourself and the impact you were meant to make. When you refuse to speak your truth, people fill the silence with assumptions. They decide for you what you think, what you feel, and what you deserve. They take your quiet compliance as agreement, your hesitation as weakness, and your politeness as submission. Over time, you start to feel invisible, even in the spaces where you are physically present. People will overlook your talents, ignore your contributions, and dismiss your ideas simply because you have not asserted them. Your silence becomes fertile ground for undervaluation, and what you've been too polite to express becomes your disadvantage. Your voice is more than just a tool for communication. It is a shield, a boundary, and a way to command respect. Speaking up is not about being loud or aggressive. It is about clarity, courage, and self-respect. It is about letting others know that your thoughts, feelings, and boundaries matter. When you express yourself, you assert your presence in the world, you protect your space, and you demand accountability. Your voice becomes a way to teach people how to treat you, to set standards, and to establish authority over your life and your decisions. The fear of speaking up often comes from a fear of conflict, rejection, or judgment. You worry that expressing your opinion will make you unpopular or labeled as difficult. You fear that asserting your needs will upset the balance of relationships. But the truth is that the cost of silence is far greater than the discomfort of being heard. Every time you deny your voice, you deny yourself. Every time you remain quiet, you allow others to shape your reality. And every time you shrink your expression, you lose a piece of your identity. When you begin using your voice consistently, you will notice a profound shift. People start to take you seriously. Relationships become more honest. Opportunities arise because your presence is felt. Your voice sets the tone for how you are treated, how decisions involve you, and how your ideas are valued. You become someone whose presence commands attention, not by demanding it, but by owning it. Speaking up is an act of empowerment. It is a declaration that you will no longer settle for being overlooked, silenced, or minimized. Your voice is sacred, powerful, and transformative. It carries your experiences, your insight, your vision, and your truth. The world does not need you to shrink for comfort. It needs you to rise and speak boldly. When you finally embrace the strength of your voice, you not only elevate yourself, but also inspire others to recognize the power within their own words. Speaking is not just communication. It is a statement of your identity, your value, and your purpose. Transformation requires strength, not permission. And this is a truth many women overlook because they are waiting for someone else to approve their growth. Too often you stay in the shadows, waiting for validation from others before stepping into your full potential. You wait for approval from friends, family, mentors, or even society, believing that without it, your ambitions are invalid or your ideas are not worthy. But the harsh reality is that no one has the authority to give you permission to become who you were created to be. Your destiny doesn't require an invitation. It requires courage, conviction, and action. Waiting for permission keeps you small. It keeps you compliant, hesitant, and stuck in patterns that limit your impact. You may feel comfort in waiting because it shields you from criticism, failure, and rejection. You convince yourself that patience is necessary and that timing depends on external approval, but this is not patience. It is procrastination disguised as prudence. The longer you wait for someone to validate your worth, the longer your dreams remain dormant, your potential unexpressed, and your voice unheard. Strength is the key to transformation. It is the inner power that allows you to act even when fear whispers you are not ready. It is the resolve that moves you forward when others doubt you. It is the courage to rise when circumstances try to hold you back. Transformation does not require anyone else's consent. It requires your commitment to yourself. Every time you step beyond fear, take a risk, and assert your presence, you move closer to the woman you were destined to become. You don't need permission to speak, to lead, to create, or to thrive. You need to trust in your own ability to do so. The journey of transformation is never easy. It will challenge your comfort zones, disrupt familiar patterns, and provoke resistance from those who prefer you remain the same. Some people may try to discourage you, doubt you, or undermine your efforts. They may say you are moving too fast, too boldly, or too differently, but the strength to transform lies in listening to your own calling, not the opinions of others. True transformation is about aligning your life with your purpose, not with the approval of people who may never see your vision. Every great shift in life begins when you choose to act without waiting for validation. You claim your space, your voice, your time, and your energy. You prioritize growth over comfort, purpose over approval, and courage over hesitation. When you step into this mindset, transformation becomes inevitable. You begin to attract the right opportunities, the right people, and the right experiences, not because anyone has sanctioned your growth, but because you have embraced it unapologetically. The moment you understand that strength, not permission, is what drives transformation, you release yourself from limitations. You stop living under the expectation of others and start living under the guidance of your purpose. You stop shrinking to fit into their comfort zones and start expanding to fulfill your destiny. Transformation is not about asking for permission, it's about claiming what is already yours. When you do this, you no longer wait, you rise, you shine, you evolve, and in that evolution, you become unstoppable.